Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. So, on Sunday, I made a video about what's going on in Israel. And I, at the time, suggested that the response from Israel against Palestine would be immense, would be mind boggling, would be earth shattering, and that they intended to take this much further than probably the rest of the civilized world would be comfortable with. I predicted that Israel would see this as the opportunity to end this thing once and for all, and that they would essentially, their reaction would be so incredibly over the top that it would cause other Arab nations to rise up in defense of Palestine. And this is about to occur. That we can agree, I know you've seen the horrible footage and the horrible videos of the terroristic attack against the people of Israel by the 1,000-member force of Hamas who penetrated their defenses on Saturday. I think you've heard the testimony of eyewitnesses. You've seen the videos of the executions. You've heard about the beheaded babies. But many of you may not have seen the response and paid close attention to that. Gaza City had been barely touched on Saturday when I made my predictions that it would be reduced to rubble. And now, even by my own estimations, it's gone far and beyond what even I expected. That it looks like absolute Armageddon in Gaza City. That there are complete neighborhoods, many, many square blocks where high-rise apartment buildings once stood that now have been reduced to rubble. I believed at the time that the first round of attacks had already leveled the number of dead on the Palestinian to equal that of the Israeli losses. But I underestimated the Israeli losses. Honestly, this terror attack was even worse than I saw and perceived on Saturday when I made my video on Sunday. And so in the last couple of days, even more bodies have been discovered, even more horror stories of the attack against Israel have come forth, and likewise the bombardment of Gaza City has increased. And Gaza is retaliating with more rocket strikes. There's been reports of forces in Lebanon, Hezbollah forces in Lebanon, sending more rockets in from the north. I heard today of a 15 drone attack against northern Israel coming from Lebanon. And so this violence is still continuing to come at Israel as they use overwhelming force to turn Gaza City into the Stone Age. They bombed it to complete rubble. And now the death tolls are about equal from what we can tell, although I think the number of Palestinian dead will eventually rise, since most of the Israelis that were killed in a way their bodies were easily recovered and the dead counted. The bodies inside of these apartment buildings, these apartment high-rises in Gaza City, because it's a collapse, they'll be finding bodies for weeks or months into the future. And so the death toll at this point is still an estimate on the Gaza side for certain. And so it's at this point where I believe that the Gaza Strip and the people of Palestine have been adequately punished for the 1,000-person attack against Israel. And the losses are about equal. This would be a time for prudent people who are peace-minded to call for a ceasefire. And I don't see that happening. Like I said, I believe the reaction from Israel will be a gross overreaction. That the horrific nature, the nightmarish, violent, and hideous nature of the slayings that occurred in Israel at the hands of these 1,000 terrorists that infiltrated the barrier and entered Israel and wreaked havoc that took several days to clear out and to neutralize. And there was still some fighting going on in Israel with these insurgents that escaped. Some of them made it as far as Tel Aviv. And so I really think because of the horrific nature, because of the hair-raising accounts of these cold-blooded murders in Israel, that Israel's not going to be happy until every last Palestinian is driven into the sea, put into prison camps. I predicted this was what if Russia's response went unchecked, that there's enough wrath, hatred, and animosity because of the nature of the Palestinian attacks against Israel, that Israel would justify some horrific crimes against humanity of their own, and they would take advantage of this. And I'd like to point out that it's been 15 years. I think it's been since 2005 or 8, maybe, since Gaza has been occupied by Israel. Israel is not occupying that area, and they have the area cordoned off by a border wall. But if I were in charge in Israel, what would I do? How would I handle it from here on out? I believe that if they want to stop a greater invasion from Syria, from Lebanon, from insurgents in Iraq, from intervention by Iran and potentially Jordan or even Egypt, that it's time for them now to pull back and show restraint. If I were in charge of Israel at this point, I would continue my encircling and preparation for a land invasion against Gaza, and then I would call for a ceasefire. And I would tell the people of Palestine that if you stop sending rockets and drones into Israel, we'll stop bombing you with attack bombers from the sky. We'll stop sending in missiles if you'll stop sending in rockets, and call for a ceasefire. Then at that point, if the ceasefire successfully takes hold and the bombing and the rocket exchanges stop, then I would make it all about the hostages. I would say to them, we have got you in a siege situation. We have you surrounded. We've cut off your food, your water. We've cut off your electricity. And we will starve you out until you release the hostages. Release the hostages, all of them, every last one of them, and then we'll lift this embargo, this siege of Gaza, and allow food and supplies to come into the people. And the point behind that is, by stopping the open warfare right now and adopting the siege tactic and isolating Gaza, then you cause the people of Gaza to be under so much hardship that potentially they will turn on Hamas, and they will offer up these Hamas infrastructures. They will tip off the Israelis to the location of these underground tunnels and the potential places where the hostages might be held, including 12 to 14 Americans, as well as European hostages, along with men, women, and children taken from Israel, and some Israeli soldiers as well that were taken hostage, taken prisoner. And don't offer them any prisoner exchange. Don't offer them any ransom. Tell them, we will open the water, we will turn on the power, and we will allow food shipments to enter your country when you are willing to release these hostages. And until you do, you can starve, you can suffer, and you can remain isolated. If they in the past called this an open air prison, well, it just went up a notch in that categorization. If they can hold this siege indefinitely until these Palestinian Hamas terrorists, you might say they're the militia of the Palestinian people in Gaza, if they want their country back, if they want to avoid an invasion, if they want to avoid essentially genocide against the people of Gaza, then they need to release these hostages and set these people free. And there I would sit and give them time to stew and rot in their own destruction until they're willing to release these hostages. What Israel cannot do is to continue to bombard Gaza into the Stone Age. They can't really justify an invasion at this point that's going to result in tremendous loss of life on the behalf of the populace, the general people, the non-combatants of Palestine. And so if they do, if they do continue this scorched earth approach to the retaliation against Palestine, then you can expect other countries to offer support to Palestine, to potentially get involved or even invade Israel from its other borders. You could see Hezbollah get involved. You could see Lebanon, Syria, Iraq insurgents, direct Iranian involvement in this siege. It's definitely going to make Israel look bad, and it's going to shift the public opinion from defending Israel into seeing Israel as overreacting and overstepping. So if I were the leader of the Israeli people this morning, what I would do is I would call for a ceasefire. And once the ceasefire was sustained, I would announce a siege of unending misery until these people who are responsible for these kidnappings return the captives, and that includes the Americans. And this is where it would stay until that became a humanitarian catastrophe, because it puts the ball in the court of Hamas. It puts the blame back on Hamas. Right now, the blame is shifting to Israel as long as they continue these blanket bombings and destruction of the buildings and structures of Gaza City. Now, having said that, I'm not defending Israel as much as I am putting some of the blame back over onto Hamas and even the Palestinian people, because unlike other armies, Hamas hides amongst the people. They hide in schools. They use their own populace as human shields to protect them from bombardment. And this is why there's been so many civilians and so many children killed in these attacks, because the Hamas terrorist fighters are literally hiding in neighborhoods where ordinary people live. They're hiding amongst them. And the ordinary people of Palestine need to turn on these Hamas fighters and turn them over, or at least give away their location to the Israelis. And if they don't, the siege will continue. And someone needs to speak up to Israel and go, okay, enough is enough. You know, you killed 1,000 of them, they killed 1,000 of you, and now it's time to negotiate. Now it's time to put your focus over onto the hostages. I don't expect Israel to do that. I expect Israel to overreact in a global way, in epic proportions. Okay, I expect them to overdo this. I'm getting that they see this as their opportunity to once and for all do in Hamas and the Palestinians along with them, because you can't get to Hamas without hurting the Palestinians, and that's happening right now. And so if you are interested in peace, if you're interested in stopping World War III, then this is the time to put on the brakes. This is the time to adopt a siege and demand the release of hostages, in turn offering to turn back on the lights, the water, and the food shipments to Gaza, so the people there don't starve to death any more than they are already going to. I don't expect Israel to do this. I expect the hard-headed hardliners to continue this unprecedented destruction of Gaza until there's nothing left. At that point, I'm estimating that if they do this, this is the tinderbox that will ignite World War III. America has already sent our carrier group there to let Iran know, if they get involved, that they will be dealing with us, not Israel. And if it gets to that point, where it looks like the only option for the Arab nations, if they want to defend the total destruction of Gaza, is to enter into the war, then that will bring the United States into the war. Another thing I want to talk about is the inevitability, the inevitable truth that on Friday the 13th, a intifada, a holy war, a day of Muslim uprising has been called for by the leaders of Hamas, and will likely result in terrorist activity around the globe, especially in the United States and its territories. And you can expect there to be all types of terroristic attempts to attack American citizens, both abroad and on our own soil, just for sending the support, just for supplying the Israelis in their fight. And so you need to, if you're in a place where it's illegal for you to carry a gun, if it's not legal, then that's on you. But if you're in a place where it's legal to carry a pistol, I would go about armed 24/7, and I intend to. I don't intend to go out into any public place without a gun on my hip, because I live in a constitutional carry state, because I do believe that it could happen anywhere. It could happen in any small town, in any big city, wherever there's anyone who is sympathetic to Palestinian cause, or is the cause of Islam, and if they will respond to this call for a holy war and a day of terror against the West, then you should be concerned. You should have your head on a swivel, and you should be armed, because it could happen in your neighborhood. I just wanted to make a short video on what I would do if I was in charge of the Israeli nation. I would call for a ceasefire. I would adopt a siege, and I would demand the release of hostages. And in return, we would open up the gates of at least humanitarian aid to Gaza. Because at this point, they're not only facing bombing, but they're facing potential starvation, people dying from thirst. And thankfully, it's not wintertime yet. Although it doesn't get that cold in Israel, it does get cold from what I understand. Never been there. But nonetheless, the lack of facilities, the hospitals there are out of the basic necessities to treat the casualties, and the humanitarian destruction, the humanitarian crisis that this bombing is going to cause is going to wreak havoc on the people of Gaza, and it's going to be seen as a tragedy and a talking point for Palestinian-friendly nations around the world. So this is a chance for them to continue to be seen, Israel, to continue to be seen as the victim here and the good guys, if they can pull it back a notch, call for negotiations, demand the release of hostages, and announce that the siege will stand until the hostages are released, and avoid a ground incursion into the Gaza Strip, which would inevitably be a bloodbath. So I'm praying for peace. I hope you are too. I'm preparing for war because I'm afraid that it's coming. And I'm recognizing that this may very well be the beginning of the tribulation period. If you're hoping for a pre-trib rapture, I think it's too late. I think we're in it. And you might live to a mid-trib, but in my opinion, we have to ride this one out. But be of good cheer and know this, that the promise given to Israel was transformed and transferred to Christians through the act of Jesus Christ. And we have inherited the promise of Abraham, and we are the chosen people of God, and we will be protected in this time of trouble. They may hunt us, they may target us, they may hate us because we love Jesus, but ultimately we are under the protection of Jesus Christ, and he will see us through these times of trouble. Put on the full armor of God, brothers and sisters, so you can stand in this evil day. We'll see you next time from the cabin down by the creek.